All right, Math 8 students, here we are, lesson 12.1. This is our guided practice for our Pythagorean theorem. So we're going to take a look at these three questions a little bit closer in case you were absent or need some extra examples or need some extra assistance walking through these. So number 1 is asking us to find the length of the missing side of the triangle. For this, we need to use that Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then we've got our side lengths here for this triangle. So we have A, we have B, and we are looking for C. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and put in that A squared, which they did as 24. So 24 squared. We are going to put in that next leg length, which is 10 squared. And then that equals C squared. So then we need to simplify these. We've got 24 squared, which is 576. Plus 10 squared, which is 100, right? 10 times 10. And that equals 676. Now it doesn't show this step, but the next thing we need to do is find the square root of 676, and that should give us C. So if I go ahead and I'm going to plug this into my calculator, find the square root, 676. I get 26. So C equals 26. I can double check that by just squaring that. And so 26 times 26 does equal 676. So the length of the hypotenuse is 26 feet. Make sure you're using those units if it's given them to you. Okay, number 2. Mr. Wu wants to ship a fishing rod that is 42 inches long to his son. He has a box with the dimensions shown. So we've got a box that's got a length of 40 inches, it's got a width of 10 inches, and it's got a height of 10 inches. And this fishing rod is that diagonal through the box. The cool thing about boxes is that we get a triangle here, and we get a triangle here, and then we also get that triangle right here. And so we need to use all of those measurements to determine this diagonal distance, which is what it's going to ask us to do. But first it wants us to find the square of the length of the diagonal across the bottom of the box. So that's this one right here. It wants us to find this hypotenuse of this triangle at the base. Okay? So we've got a length of 40 and we've got a width of 10. So that's going to be our A and our B squared. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually slide this over here so we have some space to work. And that way I can show all of my steps a little bit better, I think. And so I'm going to do my A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And so the first one that I'm going to use is this length here. I'm going to use it as my A squared. And you could use either of these. Generally I like to use the small one as A, but this one's going to be fine. So 40 squared plus our width squared, which is 10. So 40 squared plus 10 squared equals C squared. So 40 squared is 1600, right? Plus 10 squared, which is 10 times 10, that's 100, equals C squared, okay? So 16 plus 100 is 1700 equals C squared. And so I'm actually just going to leave that length as it is. I'm going to leave this distance right here. That's my C squared distance. Okay. And I'm going to leave that because the next thing it's going to want me to do, let me move this back over, is it's going to want me to find the length from the bottom corner to the opposite top corner to the nearest tenth. Okay? And to do that, this is the hypotenuse here. I need to use that squared distance and that height distance squared. So let's go ahead and write this in here. This is C squared equals 1700 for this distance right here. Right? Okay, and that's going to be the base of my next triangle. So now we need to find the length of this diagonal here. So we need to use the height they gave us and the base that we just determined, the height squared, the base squared, and that will give us our diagonal distance squared. So I'm going to slide back over here again. For this second one, I've got this A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And I've already determined this squared distance, right? So I'm going to use that as my A. That's going to be 1700. And it's already squared. I do not need to square it again. That would be a common error. And then I've got, oops, pressed a button. Wrong button. Then I've got that height, which is 10. And I do need to square that, and that's going to be c squared. So I've got 1700 plus 100, right, because 10 times 10 is 100, equals c squared. So now I've got 1800 equals c squared. The last thing I need to do is find the square root of 1800 to find that the distance of that hypotenuse, or the length of that hypotenuse. And so if I plug the square root of 1800 into my calculator, I get a decimal, a long decimal. I get 42.2, oops, 42, let's go back, 0.4264, and then it goes on, okay? So it wants me to round to the nearest tenth. So when I round this to the nearest tenth, I get 42.4. So that is my length of that fishing rod in that box. So I'm going to put that here, 42.4 inches. Okay, and then there was a second part to that question, so let's take a look at that. Will the fishing rod fit? The fishing rod is how long? They told us that up here. The fishing rod is 42 inches. He's got 4/10 of an inch to spare, so yes, it will fit. So the last thing that we're going to look at here is our essential question check-in, question 3. And we are going to state the Pythagorean Theorem and tell how you can use it to solve problems. Well, the cool thing about the Pythagorean Theorem, as you know, is that it allows us to find missing side lengths of right triangles when two lengths are given. So remember that we've got our legs, and they are perpendicular and they form a right angle, and then we've got that hypotenuse here. And so that we can use, given that we have two side lengths, any two side lengths, we can determine the length of the missing one. So that's what we're going to write here. So you can use it. The missing side length, or unknown, oops, spelled that wrong, of a right triangle, has to be a right triangle, given two known side lengths. So if you know two side lengths, you can find the third. And that Pythagorean theorem is the a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b are legs and c is the hypotenuse. Okay, and so that's kind of it in a nutshell, how you use the Pythagorean theorem. All right, if you had questions as we went through this, please make sure that you are writing them down, that you're bringing them to class, that you are asking them, because that is an important part of understanding and learning, is making sure you're asking those questions. All right, I will see you guys on the flip side.